There's a little bit of a delay, but I know now that you can hear me. So I see that there are 18 viewers, and I am going to start because we've had a little bit of a delay. Well, thank you for hanging in there. Technology can be challenging the first time you do something, but it's designed to be easy once you know what you're doing. So I want to say hello to everyone. We do have quite a few people watching here. I can see that there's 18 of you, and some of you are all together in a classroom, so there's a few of you. Thank you all very much for joining. It all started with Dragos Siobanu from the University of Leeds asking me to do a professional talk to his students on starting out in the language services industry. From there, other European universities asked to be part of, and we have a total of 7 universities across Europe joining us in a class with our professors from the universities of Bucharest, Alcala, Paris Diderot, Porto, Turku, Portsmouth, and Leeds. Well, thank you, Dragos, very much for organizing this webinar and helping me with the technology. We also have a few more universities joining in as individual students. If I haven't mentioned your university name, please write it in the chat section. So I am Jennette Stewart, and some of you may know me from Translation Commons and from my column Community Lives in Multilingual magazine. I have been in the language industry for over 20 years as a CEO of Communicare, which is a life sciences LSP, and for one of Google's review vendors. I have also been in advertising for major pharmaceuticals and consumer goods such as Coca-Cola, Colgate-Palmolive, and Unilever, and I was also a consultant for NBC's Universal Studios. So I hope I can give you some insights to help you start out in the language services industry. Our topic is starting out, and what does that really mean? So you finish college, you get your first job, and that is it? Your career path is set? Well, maybe in the past, but today you always start before you finish the previous part. So for you, this means that starting out has to be now before you graduate. Some of you will quickly think this is impossible. I can't work while I'm still in class every day. Well, yes, this is true, but what you can do is prepare. So starting out starts with preparing to start. And this preparation is the most important part of the process. During this time and until you graduate, you will have to make many decisions. You will have to create plans and alternate plans. And most importantly, you will need to dig deep inside your psyche to find exactly what you want and what you're prepared to do to get it. So to be successful in anything you do, but more so when you're starting out your career, you need to know what you want and how to get it. I would like to break down this preparation into 2 sections. Prepare for the language services industry and prepare for your own personal success. In the first section of preparing for the language services industry, what you need to do in summary is gather intelligence and create a plan of action for when you graduate. In the second section of preparing for your own success, you need to understand your strengths and weaknesses and plan for a career that suits your temperament and also will bring you the rewards that you aim for. Everything that I will be talking about today refers to both translation and interpretation, but a few issues may relate more to one or the other. So let's dive in the first section. Preparing for the language services industry. Our industry is constantly changing and evolving. It is amazing to watch the new developments and the reach that our work has. When you look at the global commerce, there are always translators involved. Always remember this, even when others don't realize that globalization could not be possible without translators. If your friends don't know what our industry is, don't fret. We're an important part of commerce, even though they don't know it. I always like to bring this fact up that the world may not know about us, but I'm so proud to be contributing in the language services industry and being here today sharing some insight that I hope will help you. So when you graduate, you have one very simple choice. Will you work for a company or will you become an entrepreneur, your own boss? Or is there a third choice? Work for a company while learning and acquiring the dreaded 5 years translation experience, get some contacts, and then go freelance. Your short-term and long-term plan is yours to decide, and you can change your mind at any time. Working for a company means choosing between the few coveted positions in translation and localization departments on the client side, or working for a vendor or an automation provider. So let's look at the client side briefly. You can either enter as a project manager or a language quality specialist. These are positions in large tech companies with constant new content that gets localized daily. Some translate in over 100 languages and use 5 or 6 large vendor companies and have in-house teams of 30, 40 plus people. They can be using translators in the thousands for all of these languages. Because of the volume of translation, we tend to know a lot about them, but they are not the only industry that requires large volume of translation. Life sciences, for example, have an equally large volume and very, very strict compliance regulations. Because of this, you will find that their translation is controlled by their regulatory affairs departments. So when you're looking for open positions, you need to know where to look at. Medical device companies have to have inserts in every language for every country they sell their products. So you will find the translation jobs in their packaging department. And a lot of consumer products will also have their translations done by their packaging departments. So to apply for jobs on the client side, you need to do a lot of information gathering, ask people working in these companies, and keep on looking for keywords of translation in their open positions. As a rule of thumb, look at where their translations are aimed at. Is it internet content or a physical product? And then search accordingly. On the vendor side, meaning LSPs, language service providers, you can mostly enter as a project manager, intern, or quality assurance. The larger LSPs may also have internship programs. So if you could get a spot while still in university, you stand a chance of meeting the right people who you could then contact when you graduate. Some LSPs have a continuous recruitment process for PMs because they want to be ready for when they need them. But be aware that when one of their big accounts loses a PM, they need to move fast. Chances are that if you're responding to such a job opening and get selected, things happen very fast, so you should be available when they need you. The larger the LSP, the better training they will provide and opportunities for career advancement. However, don't look down at the smaller LSPs. They provide excellent on-the-job training and are great for people who have a wide skill set and are willing to learn new things. The swim or sink training is not for everyone, but for the ones that it works for, the rewards are quicker and bigger because you get rewarded based on how much you are needed, not the seniority you have achieved. I would definitely recommend at least a year or two in a smaller LSP, especially for those who want to become freelancers. Working for a tool provider may not be a career path for everyone, but if you are interested in technology and automation, this is an option and a potential good entry-level job. They will need mostly project managers, or, as I have found out recently, academic program managers. This is people creating relationships between the tool company and the various universities. And this is a great entry-level job, but there are not that many of these jobs available right now. And now let's talk about becoming a freelancer. The biggest hurdle you will find is that all reputable agencies will want their freelancers to have at least 5 years experience and a solid specialization. Some of you may have already started building a small client base and portfolio. Family and friends may have been able to give you some small jobs, even paid jobs. You will all have got some projects donated for free to nonprofits, maybe even as part of your courses. But none of these are enough to get the large LSPs to give you translation jobs. One option you have, I already mentioned, is to work as a PM and get the insights of what LSPs are looking for when they hire translators. And in your free time, work to ensure you gradually acquire them. A few of my best freelance translators were my PMs first. Another good option you have is to apply to all these LSPs for proofreading jobs. Be honest and say that you are committed to becoming a translator, but you are aware that you need to build your experience and hope that your proofreading skills, which are already excellent, would be of benefit to them. One thing that you have to be careful and open about is that if you already work as a PM for an LSP, other LSPs may see this as a conflict of interest and not give you any jobs. However, the LSP you're working for should be able to give you proofreading jobs, at least enough to train you and get you started. Again, I would like to share the example of an intern proofreader that came to work for us for 3 months, then went on to work for a year as a freelance proofreader. And when we had a PM opening, she came on board. And a few years later, she was operations manager. From my understanding, every LSP is employing some sort of proofreading for their clients, but be aware that proofreading is not the highest paid job. Most of the LSPs that will be able to give you proofreading jobs will not be passing on the cost to their clients. If their client is paying for quality assurance, then the LSP would be employing a trained and experienced reviewer revisor. So chances are that the proofreading jobs you will be getting will be absorbed financially by the LSP, and they would involve jobs done by translators that the LSP is not confident about. There is one very important advantage to proofreading jobs. You don't need to be specialized in the specific subject, which allows you to accept multiple subject areas. By proofreading, you will have the opportunity to check different subject areas and have a first feel of what you like and what you feel comfortable working in. You can identify a couple of areas that you can start specializing in and start reading on. As you will have heard by many of your professors, specialization is very important. There are a few big subject areas that require big volume of translation, and there's always demand for good translators in these areas. Legal, life sciences, and technical are just a few, and even in these categories, there are subspecializations. To become specialized in any of these high-volume subjects, first, you need to have an affinity or passion for it. For example, if you like watching medical shows and you're curious to know all sorts of medical facts, then give medical translation a try. Be aware that you will need to translate material addressed both to patients and to doctors, and it could be any type of medical material, from open heart surgery to spine alignment. As you can understand, you will need to do a lot of research, have medical professionals you can reach out to, and a full commitment to the subject and a continuous skill updating. This is of specialization, and be certain, there are as many as there are subjects of study in your universities. Specializing is a very long process and you need to be patient. But once you reach a specific point in your career and you're known for being a great translator in a specific subject area, you will have LSP seeking you out. This is a great career goal to have, but you have to be patient. It will take years. A great area of translation which goes unnoticed by a lot of people is subtitling, dubbing, and audiovisual in general. In the past, the demand was satisfied locally in the various countries, but today more and more companies are centralizing their efforts. Currently, there is a boom of requirements stemming from the many streaming companies with Netflix, Amazon, YouTube, and all the mainstream channels leading the way. There are also many LSPs offering subtitling and dubbing, and the good news for graduates is that what is really required as a specialization is to be current and relevant, something all young students have today. So my advice is for all of you to look at subtitling and dubbing in your own languages as an entry-level specialization. Give it a try with TED Talks or try it with any YouTube video and use the Translation Commons website free tools. You may be surprised and find a new career path, as one of the students from the University of Texas did when they were piloting the Translation Commons subtitling tool. Whether you want to work for a company or become a freelancer, you need to have an action plan in place of how you will get your CV in the right hands and land the first job. Whether you are applying for company jobs or trying to start as a freelancer, you will have to create a comprehensive plan. The first thing to do is create a spreadsheet to gather all the information you come across and to have it as easy reference for potential contacts. If you're applying for jobs on the client side, you add to the spreadsheet the different companies that you want to approach. Gather in that sheet all the information you find, from their website URL to their mission statement, to the departments, various articles you read online, etc. If you know people, ask them questions and ask them to help you identify the right person to talk to. Check out the recruitment agencies and see which recruiter places people in which companies. Specifically target people from your own university. Ask your professors if any other graduate has managed to get a job where you're interested, and be active on the alumni social media sites. Start going to your alumni office and spend time with your career advisors. This is the time to establish who has contacts within your targeted organizations. Mark every communication you make with each company and the outcome. You will be surprised how many details we forget over a period of only a few months. Once you send your CV, make sure you follow up with a call. If they ask you to send to someone else your resume, start from the beginning, a new entry, and follow up again. If you don't hear back within a few weeks, you can consider this a dead end, and you need to move on to the next stage of your plan. If all your entries have not come back to you, consider employment with an LSP. You can continue talking to them, especially if you have contacts that are getting back to you, but don't waste more time waiting. If they come through with an offer, you can always change your plans. If you already got another job, you can compare the one you already have with the offer made, and you can decide accordingly. Now, if you're trying to get a job in an LSP, there are many online resources to get information from. Your main interest should be the culture and the complaints you read about them. There will always be complaint for companies, but when you see too many and from different people within the same language combination, be careful. Again, you can use the Alumni Circle to verify reports and focus on the LSPs you feel you will be a good match. Identify which ones have offices in your area and give them a call. They may or may not have a human resources department, but you will be able to get some information from the receptionist. If you know anybody working there, make sure you have a lot of questions ready and add every name and information you get on your spreadsheet. For some of them, you may get the cold shoulder, and be referred to their online portal. But my advice is that you apply online and at the same time you send your CV by regular post. The CVs in hard copy may end up in the hands of someone higher up that usually doesn't deal with hiring, but takes a look, especially if they have in mind a vacancy that they need to fill. Coincidence and luck can be on your side. Finally, if you want to become a freelancer, the information you need to gather is a lot more simple. You don't need to care about the culture of any company or their general reputation. All you need to care for is if they are good payers, meaning avoid all the ones marked in online websites as bad payers. Having said that, your preparation needs to be so much thorough and complete. So let's start with who your clients will be. If you are a born entrepreneur or grew up in a household of self-employed people, you may want to try and get some direct clients, especially if you have assistance from friends and family. If you do go down this path straight out of college, I suggest you get prepared by honing in on skills you haven't thought to do so yet. Marketing. You need a simple website and how to position yourself amongst the many freelancers, meaning what is your niche. Social media. You need an excellent LinkedIn profile and some activity in all the media. Sales. You need some basic closing and negotiating techniques. Legal. You need solid terms and conditions, as well as to know what NDAs, non-disclosure agreements, or confidentiality contracts you're signing. Accounting. You will need to keep records, invoice clients, collect payments, document expenses, declare profits, and pay taxes. Professional indemnity insurance. The list is big, but not endless. The more organized you are, the easier it is to keep track of everything. The good news is that every country has marvelous translator and interpreters associations, and they should be your first call when you need advice on the business side of being a freelancer. If, on the other hand, you wish to start your freelance career and work with LSPs, a lot of the above becomes simpler. The whole concept of LSPs started by them being middlemen between clients and translators, providing all the business aspects to both parties. You will still need to do your own accounting, but more or less everything else will be done for you. At some point in your career, you will want to take charge of these other business aspects like marketing and social media, but there is no immediate need to do so when you're working with agencies. There are thousands of agencies, not just the big ones you know. Start by looking at various translation companies' associations, then check online lists and do any type of Google search you can think of. You will always find translation agencies. One very important word of caution. In the last few years, because of the boom that our industry has experienced, we started having scammers. Most of the times you can easily tell who to avoid, but as an extra precaution, check out websites and social media that name and shame the scammers and the non-payers. You will find them both in LinkedIn and Facebook groups. The big lesson here is to aim for the reputable and reliable LSPs. The next big effort you need to undertake is sending out your application. This is where your spreadsheet will become invaluable. First of all, create 2 tiers of agencies. The top well-known and desirable agencies, and then all others. When it comes to your top list, you need to do all the research you can, find contacts, check if they have internship programs, everything in the news about them, where their offices are, etc. You will create a plan of action for each of them, and you will apply through multiple ways. Always apply from their online platform and provide everything they ask. In addition, write to their HR department and their vendor manager. Every email and letter should be completely personalized and not repeating itself. Even on follow-up emails, attach your short bio, a list of your portfolio, and your volunteer work. Try to find a way of differentiating yourself from everyone else. As an individual, you are unique. So how can you convince them of that? When it comes to the second-tier agencies, numbers count. The more emails you send, the better chance of a reply you will have. In most marketing efforts, an average return is 10%. If you are lucky enough to get 10% of the agencies responding to your email and getting back to you, then consider a further 10% of them will actually give you work. So as I said before, numbers count. A lot of people say that you should personalize each email for each agency, and that is true. But realistically, this can take you a very, very long time. So my advice is being selective. The ones that seem to be attractive to you and you feel you may stand a good chance, by all means, personalize everything you send them. But the rest you may want to do a batch email and hope for the best. One thing you can always do is go back to those months later and send again. Perhaps this time you will have more time to personalize a few more. Some agencies may get back to you and ask you for a test piece. It should never be more than a page. Every translator knows within a couple of paragraphs if what they're reading is done by a competent translator and if the style is acceptable. Everything more than a page today is considered to be a way of getting a free small translation. So be aware and don't be afraid to refuse a long test piece. In your efforts to apply to direct clients and LSPs, you should use all methods available to you. Apply online, email generic emails provided by their website, email direct contacts, and make phone calls. If you don't have a contact, the receptionist may be able to help you get the right email, although they will never give out names. Being friendly with a receptionist can always unlock doors and get your CV in the right hands. Finally, use social media, especially LinkedIn, to get names and positions in the large companies. Perhaps a connection and an insightful comment that you make can get you noticed by someone in the right position. But do not get disappointed if you don't get an answer. The same way you approach them, others have too, and the last thing you want is to be remembered as a nuisance. Another big avenue to get jobs are the online platforms like pros.com and SmartCat. There are many platforms available today, and my advice is to stick to the ones that pay you directly, and they are not just an intermediary for clients. The only concern with these online platforms is that prices are very low, but this may be the only way for you to build your portfolio, so it's worth working with them. One of the most important elements of your plan is going to be to budget for your expenses. You need to be aware that to do business, you need to spend money first to set up and acquire all that is needed to do business. Some of you may have student loans to pay off, so please make sure you are budgeting correctly. Expenses that you will need to cater for are dependent on whether you will be working for direct clients and therefore be fully responsible as a self-employed person, or if you will be working mostly with agencies. Let's take as an example your professional email. If you are working for an agency, a simple free Gmail account with your name is sufficient. The only concern is that your name should be recognizable as you. If, however, you will be working for direct clients, they will want to see a company name and a proper .com email address. Otherwise, they will know you're just starting out or consider you not to be professional enough. Working with agencies, you can completely skip all the efforts on marketing, sales, and legal, as this will not be necessary at this stage of your career. However, one aspect of expenses you cannot skip, whether you're working directly with clients or with agencies, is your professional status. That involves being part of a trade association as either a full member or an associate. This costs, but it also provides benefits and a community to rely on that is priceless when you start. It will also give you some good deals for insurance and accounting tips. Finally, it will provide you with information on certifications and continuous education. The sooner you make it an annual plan to invest in updating your skills and knowledge, the better your prospects will become. Which brings me to the topic of mentoring. This is a very important topic and potentially a game changer in our industry. On the one hand, we have a few super successful and specialized translators who get all the work, so much that they can't cope. And on the other hand, we have young graduates like yourselves who are struggling to build up your portfolio. Mentoring in the form of on-the-job training is the best way to build experience and learn the industry from the safety of a professional relationship with a mentor. There are many programs, mostly created by associations, and I urge you all to look into them. But most do not go as far as they should to truly help you at the beginning. There are some pitfalls and fears from both parties. But with a clear demarcation line and set guidelines, mentoring can become an excellent entry-level way. However, if you can't find a mentoring program, perhaps you can find a mentor directly. Always look at the alumni from your university and also check social media. Some experienced translators are very keen to pass on knowledge in their blogs or websites. They would welcome you contacting them and asking questions. Belonging in social media groups is another way of asking questions and getting many answers. One of these conversations may lead to an official professional relationship. As a matter of fact, it was through a LinkedIn conversation that some of us in Translation Commons realized that to help professional translators take on mentees, we should create some broad mentoring guidelines. The concept of mentoring is extremely attractive to translators, as is shown by the group of 100 linguists that gathered to help with the guidelines. The first draft is now available to download from the Translation Commons website, specifically from the Mentoring Think Tank page. We all hope to see mentoring become the main on-the-job training in our industry. And now I would like to talk to you about the second section of this presentation, which is preparing yourselves for success. In short, what is the best mindset for success? This involves making decisions about the lifestyle you wish to adopt and how you will incorporate your work life into your everyday life. You must have heard stories of how some people feel their workday takes long hours and they hardly have any work-life balance. This is perhaps because they have not planned for these aspects of their lives, but merely followed every opportunity life brought to them, and while caught up on this mindset, are not able to change. Which is the very first aspect of preparing yourself for success. Prepare for change. And taking this a step further, embrace change. When you accept that every project, every client, and every day will be different, you will be open to take on new opportunities and change your career path to suit your needs without too much effort. It also means you're ready to get out of your comfort zone and try something new. Embracing change is another way of accepting that there are so many more things you can learn to do, and so many more ways of living life and working. It may be a challenge, but when you don't fight change, you actually evolve and move on in life. Change can be liberating from everything that doesn't work for you anymore, and you need that type of mindset to set you free. So remain positive and view all challenges as opportunities. As an industry, we are at the forefront of commerce. We are always asked to translate the latest of everything. The pace is relentless and change is constant. Another thing you will need to embrace is a different pace of life. Why clients ask for such tight deadlines? Well, I can reassure you that in my career so far, I have never had a client ask for something impossible without a good reason. Just because the reason isn't shared with us or the communication may break down at any link of the chain, it doesn't mean that the client has arbitrarily asked for that impossible deadline. There is a good reason. Accommodating for such requests earns you amazing loyalty from everyone involved. Going the extra mile with everything you do is the easiest ticket to success. And this is so much true when you put extra effort in researching, reviewing, and fine-tuning your work. Which brings me to the productivity issue. If you had all the time in the world, you would submit to your clients the perfect translations every time. But you don't have all the time in the world. There are many productivity tools for you to try and choose from. Once you find the right tools, it is still up to you to know when a translation is finished and ready to be submitted. Perfectionism is one thing. Submitting your work is another. And the two have a balanced ratio that each of you need to find for yourselves. I have worked with translators who were perfectionists but slow, others who were quick and missed things, and a few very successful translators who were both quick, good, and never missed anything. I remember being intrigued and watching carefully one of our in-house translators who was only with us a year straight out of college. She knew exactly how much time to spend in solving a problem, using her judgment quickly and moving on to the next issue. Sometimes she would come across something she didn't know. She would go to her usual sources and very rarely she wouldn't find an answer. But I watched how she made connections from her research and context of the document and posed questions to the client that showed that she understood the material but was missing a link. The client was always happy to give her the right information. She had managed to get her work habit in such a way that she was not wasting any time. I wish I could spell out exactly how she was able to be a great translator at record time, but this is something you each need to find for yourselves. You also need to get in the habit of allowing yourselves a small buffer of time. Some texts need fresh eyes, so after you finish the main translation, and a short distance can open new creative solutions which perhaps may not be obvious at first instance. Of course, there are all sorts of emergencies or power failures that if you don't have a buffer, you will be late. A very important aspect for success is being cordial and professional at all times. In our industry, we mostly work remotely, and sometimes communications from clients can come at the wrong moment. If it is the wrong moment, don't answer the phone or write an email. Being professional and having interpersonal skills is vital today, whether you're working at a company or at your home. There needs to be a clear demarcation line of your emotional state and your word communications. The better your interpersonal skills are, the more loyalty you will get from your clients. Just put yourself in their shoes and ask yourselves, would you be giving more jobs to someone who always is smiling and has something pleasant to say? Or to someone who's always complaining and may accept your job after telling you everything that is wrong with it. Availability is another balancing act you must perfect. When you undertake a large project that may keep you busy for weeks on end, you will have to refuse other smaller jobs from some of your favorite clients. You need to assess for yourself and for each client how you will handle this kind of situation. If you make yourself completely unavailable, you run the risk of not being at the forefront of the PM's mind when a next suitable job comes along. Avoid the temptation of saying yes to everything and biting off more than you can chew. On the other hand, you can't refuse jobs that are here and now for the possibility of jobs that may or may not come from others. The best way forward is to be prepared for these situations and create a small support group with other classmates of yours, whose work you trust, and then you can share the burden. If you do give, however, work to another translator, make sure you have enough time not only to proofread, but also to alter the style to make it close enough to yours and what your client is used to. Keeping up to date and using language which is relevant to your target audience is paramount for young linguists. This could mean that you travel and spend time abroad to ensure your skills are current. It may mean having certifications to ensure you can work in the subjects you wish. The lifestyle of a translator and interpreter can be peripatetic and wandering, as long as you always have a quiet place to focus and access to the internet, of course. To some, this lifestyle can be heaven, and to others, hell. But there are not many professions that give such a wide lifestyle choice as being a linguist. This is the easiest way for you to immerse yourself in a new culture and language and to broaden your skills. As long as your choices don't affect your availability, you should be able to work from anywhere in the world. The final aspect of being self-employed is of tremendous importance. People don't realize how planning and preparation of what is to come is crucial. This aspect for me is one of the most difficult to deal with, as we all have preconceptions. We work to make money and we want lots of it. Unfortunately, we stop our thinking at this point without addressing the issues of what we are prepared to give up to have that type of financial rewards. It's when we start looking at money as one part of a scale, we start approaching the issue more realistically. To make lots of money for a translator means working great many hours with fantastic productivity tools that cost a lot of money to sustain. There is a balance of what is cost effective for you to use and how much money the hours you put in brings you. On the other side of the scale is your lifestyle and what you want and need out of your personal life, your dependencies, other people's dependencies on you, and the time you need to unwind and be happy. There is no golden rule here. You each make your own decisions, and if you spend enough time understanding your inner drives, you will be able to make a pact with yourself and to keep it. Maybe the best solution is to go for the middle of the road. You're willing to work in order to have enough money to be comfortable and not have financial worries, as long as you get enough time to yourself. You can change this balance at any time in your career, as long as you're aware of what is happening and you are not falling victim of circumstances. So we talked about what you do when you have a lot of work. What about when the work is thin and you worry? See this as an opportunity. This is the perfect time to brush up a couple of skills, to contact some more agencies, to be active in social media, to connect with others, volunteer, or just to have some quality rest. You can do so much as long as you keep your spirits up and not fall victim of your own negative thoughts. Because translation is such a solitary profession, it is easy to feel you're an island and all the worries of the world are on your shoulders. Well, you're not alone, and most certainly you're not responsible for the world. So join a group and get some help. Write a blog and share your thoughts and experiences. There is so much you can do while still being a translator. Perhaps the most enlightening aspect of working alone is that we get to understand our strengths and weaknesses in a more profound way than other professions. After all, we are trained to have analytical minds and mentally explore meanings and concepts. Analyzing ourselves is something that comes easy to us. And once we have some conclusions, we should all put them in good use. Work with and for your strengths. And while ignoring your weaknesses is not a bad thing, if you do work to reverse your weaknesses, you will find a new set of skills at your disposal. For example, a weakness most of us have is fear of embarrassment when we're trying to sell our work and gain clients. We are not trained salespeople, but if you can overcome this weakness and think plainly that if you don't sell yourself, nobody else will, you may discover in the process that working directly with clients is not such a difficult affair after all. My aim today was to help you prepare both practically and mentally to start your careers. If nothing else, I hope I have managed to take away any or some of your concerns or alleviate any or some of your fears. Remember this, you are the future for our industry, and we all want to help you succeed. I know with certainty that both myself and many individual professionals, as well as all your professors, are here to help you every way we can. So do go forward and seize the day. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope that I managed to cover as much as possible. I know you may have some questions. I haven't seen any questions written here on the chat, so I would presume that you're not able to write. So I'm going to look around before I finish this and try to see if there are any emails that any of you may have sent. So just give me a few minutes. Okay, so I don't see any questions in an email format, and I don't see any questions in the chat of where I was broadcasting. So I'm looking to see if there are any questions anywhere. So I'm afraid that I'm sure you have questions, and probably the chat isn't working for us. So I would suggest for the next 15-20 minutes, the ones that are with your professors or have the original Hangout link, please go to the invitation and go to that link and see if you can find it. Before I go, I will make one more check. And I see no emails and no chat window, at least not in my screen. So I am going to finish this recording now, and whoever is able to join the Hangout, please come there for any of your questions. And thank you so much for listening.